Hello guys, and today I am very happy to introduce you to someone special who can change a lot in the course of the Russian war against Ukraine, and that is a Ukrainian long-range missile Neptune, now capable of reaching 1,000 kilometers distance. That is a lot, and this actually makes it quite equal to Taurus missiles, with one very important difference. They are produced in Ukraine, and we don't need anyone's permission to use them against the enemy. What makes it better? It seems like we have already tested this missile on another Russian oil refinery in Tuapse, and as I record this video, explosions continue there 3 days after the testing. So let's discuss the most important events of this week from an ordinary Ukrainian perspective, starting from very successful Ukrainian drone attacks on Russian military objects, like hundreds of Ukrainian drones visiting dozens of the Russian regions, and failures of the American diplomacy. Almost said American democracy, but unfortunately it is all really close. And I was very disappointed to learn that Musk and Trump administration now want to shut down Radio Free Europe. That is a symbol of resilience against the USSR and potentially one of the reasons that this monstrous communist empire collapsed. So let's talk about all of this in the video. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, the only working peace plan, subscribe, we discuss all of that on the channel. And let's start with my favorite part of this video, and that is the introduction of the new Neptune missile. Many of you have heard this name because this is a Ukrainian developed missile that we were using potentially like developing in 2010 before any attacks from Russia, and they were meant to stop huge warships. Since the start of the Russian war against Ukraine, a number of very important modifications were applied to this Neptune, and it was successfully used, starting from the very beginning of invasion. Actually, 2 Neptune missiles are responsible for the upgrade of Russian warship Moskva to a scrap metal on the bottom of the Black Sea. Another important fact that unfortunately these very unprofessional American diplomats like Witko forget about: we've destroyed Russian Black Sea fleet, so stop talking, stop advertising Putin's pathetic military efforts. Right now I do have this feeling that the White House is working on the promotion of Russia and spreading Russian version of Russian strengths, but you all know they are not the second strongest army in the world. We've clearly demonstrated that, and the Black Sea Fleet is one of that examples. So the Neptune missile right now was seriously upgraded, and it is now referred to as a long-range missile because it can reach 1,000 kilometers, and that is great. That's exactly what we need, and that's exactly what we were constantly banned from using by the United States, for example. You know that a lot of missiles, they helped us to destroy Russian arsenals, for example, close to the front lines that they used to destroy civilian infrastructure and terrorize people. But literally every time we were denied, and all because the producers, the manufacturers of these missiles were not Ukrainians. With Ukraine-made missiles, we are free to do what we want. And I pray that the production of such instruments of defense will grow tremendously in the next years. This is something Russia fears. This is something I fear the United States will try to prevent Ukraine from doing, but I hope that in Ukraine, in Europe, and all the smart people around the world will support this production here in Ukraine, and we will be able to defend not just us against Russian invasions, but many other countries that right now Putin considers as a part of his monstrous project to reconstruct the Soviet Union. So this long-range missile Neptune is capable of reaching 1,000 kilometers deep inside Russia. And what is interesting, the Ukrainian armed forces have tested it on the Russian oil refinery in Tuapse. It is located 480 kilometers away from Ukraine, and it was successfully targeted with the detonations that continue 2 or 3 days. It was on the 14th of March, so 2 days later. By the way, the Tuapse oil refinery is the one that was famous for burning for a week or something, because it's huge, and anytime we target it, the demilitarization continues for weeks, and I love it. Share these videos if you share my opinion on the peace plan, and subscribe, that's important. Join the community of the channel. And guys, I don't know if all of you have heard about that, but I've started a new channel where I will upload videos once a week, and there I want to share more about civilian life in times of a big war, because I receive a lot of questions from people who are genuinely worried about some words of Donald Trump, about this desire to let Putin go with all the things, and this can actually lead to more wars and troubles around the world. I hope this won't happen, but at the same time, I believe that sharing some of my perspective and my experience can be very useful, and the first video is already on the channel, and here I link the channel. Please subscribe. I am very happy when our community grows that too. And let's continue to the other very important events of this week, and I want to start with the successful stories, and these are Ukrainian drones, which are the best negotiators one can send to Russia, because they clearly demonstrate to the Russian population what war is. You know that 80% of Russians support war. One of the reasons why is not only because they are zombified, but also because war happens very far away from them. They don't see it, they don't hear it, they don't smell it. They don't choose to read the news. They escape from their reality into their parallel reality. But when drones visit legitimate military objects on the territory of Russia, they also deliver important messages and let Russians hear, smell, the sound of explosions, the sounds of air raid alert. For example, their airports are closed, and it's really difficult to hide such information. So more and more people understand that no, not everything goes according to Putin's plan. Despite now Donald Trump trying to demonstrate that Putin is the strongest guy ever. That is insane. I could not believe something similar to happen ever. I knew it would be bad, but I could not imagine that bad. So this week marked the most massive attack of Ukrainian drones. Hundreds of our angry birds traveled to dozens of the Russian Federation regions. Just think about that. And most importantly, almost 100 successfully and loudly landed in Moscow, with lots of explosions on that oil refinery that provides Moscow with gasoline and other stuff that they need. So that's a message for the population there. War is bad. And you know why it's so important to visit Moscow with our geography lessons? Because Moscow is the only decision center in Russia. Unfortunately, lots of their republics, lots of their regions are very depressive. And people, they have this very typical Russian concept. I don't know if you heard about small people, and they all consider themselves small people. Here in Ukraine, we believe that everyone matters and you can change anything, being an ordinary citizen. Don't abandon that in the United States, by the way, guys. But in Russia, they all think they are small people. And maybe this more or less active population is only in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And that is why Putin is deadly afraid of any protests and any problems in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And whenever there are explosions, air defense working, and Russian air defense is a disaster. Another proof that Russia is on the brink of the defeat. Please let us do the job, and then we can return back to a more or less normal world. And by the way, other dangerous authoritarian regimes will learn a lesson. Otherwise, we are in great trouble. So this week, Ukrainian drones visited dozens of Russian regions, most importantly Moscow, also in Kaluga. We have neutralized a hidden large drone plant. It's funny when Ukrainian drones destroy Russian drones. I kind of like it, but this is also a reminder that modern war is nothing that even NATO was prepared for. It is very much a war of robots, a war of drones, a war of artificial intelligence, and Ukrainians have the skills. So please, Witkov, please, Trump, do not obey to what Putin tells you, like there is no way Ukraine will join NATO. You need Ukraine in NATO just the same way Ukraine needs to be in NATO. It is not about the NATO expansion. Congratulations to people in Finland and Sweden that now joined the alliance. It's about Putin wanting to conquer more lands of the former Soviet republics and understanding that when they are NATO members, that's impossible. It's so simple. Don't let them manipulate your opinion. Every time Putin attacked Ukraine or Georgia, we were very far away from NATO membership. And the only reason we want to join the alliance is because that guarantees Russia will not continue invasions and all the killing, as Donald Trump says. So if you care about safety and security of Ukrainian civilians, let us in. But most importantly, with Putin's plan, and they are way bigger than you can think about, and also with Donald Trump's very obvious desire to become weaker and weaker inside NATO, you do need a strong, experienced country. Right now, we have the strongest army in Europe, and that is one more reason why Putin is desperately afraid of us, and he will do anything to persuade all these Witkovs to make Putin ban Ukrainian army and so on if we have ceasefire. But no one will accept that, I guarantee you. Share these videos, that's important. You see that social media plays an important role right now. And one more, an aviation base, a fuel oil refinery was targeted in Samara this week, which is great. Many of you had a good laugh when watching Putin in the uniform. He looked very fragile, very frail. I don't know what's the correct word for that. And I loved one comment that a friend left below the video, that I remember people say that men always look good in the uniform. Well, Putin is definitely an exception. And that's true. The only person that was influenced by this new image of the Russian president was Donald Trump. He did not say, "Why aren't you wearing a suit?" But he starts persuading the world that Putin is invincible. I will not be surprised if one day he will say that Russia is way stronger than America, which will be lies, but also like this very brutal betrayal of all the democratic world and the United States, first of all. And Putin visited Kursk to demonstrate it as a victory. Right now, we had a pause in intelligence sharing, and that was very troublesome for the Ukrainian soldiers. Still, I consider this operation very successful, and they sent Russian soldiers via pipeline to Sudzha, gas pipeline, and like hundreds of them were neutralized while still in the pipeline, and not all by the Ukrainian soldiers, some by the gas inside. This is the way Russia treats their soldiers. And one more very important thing that maybe you do not focus on. Putin now demonstrates as a victory some of the successes of his army inside Russia. No, he is not wearing that uniform in Kyiv or Odessa or Kharkiv. He was wearing it in Kursk region that is partially controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces. Russia can and will be defeated. And thumbs up for that. Also, this is a sad day because I've learned about the end of funding for the Radio Free Europe and also for the Voice of America. Guys, maybe in the United States you don't read them often, but all these former Soviet Union republics, they learned a lot from these sources. I will tell you one thing that made me specifically emotional. When writing my book about Ukraine, that I hope sometime soon you will be able to read, a lot of data, statistics, analysis I was taking from Radio Free Europe articles. They are the only ones to count the number of the destroyed cultural heritage sites, or to make this like analysis of the Russian war crimes, or for example, one really strong article about people and their stories who were killed by Russians on this road between Kyiv and Bucha when they were escaping. They had access to a lot of materials and they were creating this very important heritage. And it's not just for Ukraine or Georgia or Moldova, it's for a lot of countries in Asia, in Africa. And it is like an epoch. And it was the dream of the Soviet Union to destroy Radio Free Europe. People were banned from listening to it. You could get in prison in Soviet countries for listening to this radio, and people needed the voices. People needed to know the information. I visited Radio Free Europe in Prague, and it's a safe place for so many opposition leaders, for so many opposition journalists. And now this really stupid people that know nothing about the history of these tremendous sources shut them down. I know that with this kind of emotional instability and madness, Musk will not continue his work long. But somehow they destroy so many good things at such a high speed that, it's no more a crime or betrayal. It is already a sin from my Ukrainian perspective. Sorry if you feel like very emotional, but for me, these sources, these web pages, they are the best I could get in Ukraine. And I cannot imagine someone ruining them for the benefit of China, for the benefit of Russia, making, like you say it, Putin's wet dreams come true. That is disgusting. And I pray that somehow they will be restored and all this damage will not destroy the image of the United States. Because once again, they focus on some smaller projects, forgetting that all of these instruments were actually the best lobby for the American interests anywhere in the world. Don't give up. We need to stand united. By the way, we have a new beautiful merch drop in our shop, which reminds about Ukraine and also reminds about the need to stay united. Do check. They may help you if you wish to demonstrate your support to Ukraine, and I'm forever grateful for that. Join me on X. I'm fighting there. On Blue Sky, the community is growing. On Instagram, Threads, and we have an amazing Discord group. Remember to subscribe to my channel and also the new one where I share weekly videos about life in times of the big war, and I keep it more personal. Also, thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. But most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!